So our usual format for gathering, we have 5 people who have had their arms twisted to share 5 stories, 5 reflections on our theme today, and they've got up to 5 minutes to do that. Our theme for this week is Epiphany, and in January we're thinking about wintering well. We're looking forward to the light returning and what's to come. A lot of us have been reflecting on the year and maybe making plans. I know I've been making holiday plans, my sabbatical this year, so I've been looking at what I might do. And I know I'm accompanying one of my churches, at least in reflecting on how they might evolve their thinking and how they might focus their energy in the coming year. But this season, Leanne has been guiding us through extremely expertly through the season of Epiphany with a daily reflection. And in the church calendar, it's about the Magi coming to visit Christ, sharing their gifts and encountering and worshipping God. This is the dictionary definition I've got on the screen, which is interesting because they give you little ways of using the word. So many submerge themselves in ice water to celebrate Epiphany. I know they do that in Boxing Day in Whitby, but I'm not sure it's such a common thing.
They do it in Ukraine.
Do they do it in the Ukraine?
And
okay.
They call it baptism, yeah.
Oh, interesting. That is interesting, isn't it? But it can be a manifestation, so therefore, of a divine or supernatural being, or it can be a more mundane, but a revelation, a realization, an awakening. So a few years ago, I had an epiphany. So I'm not sure what our stories are going to reveal, but we will share them, and then we'll reflect together after we've listened to them all. So our first guest is David, and he's going to talk about Bono, I think. So I'll stop sharing the presentation, David, and you can guide us forth.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Bono is the lead singer of the rock group U2, who for over 40 years have been one of the biggest rock bands in the world. In his recently published biography, Surrender, he describes himself as a follower of Jesus who struggles to keep up. Towards the end of the book, Bono reflects on his life, and he writes this. And what I'll be reading next is an extract from the book. Some people see a picture, or hear a voice, or repeat a prayer or a mantra. Me, I've heard a melody that even now can soothe my soul if I'm disquieted. It's a melody put to the words of the Lord's Prayer. On restless nights when sleep eludes me, I sing it in my head. In those moments when I feel lost, this melody finds me and brings me to a name. And for a split second, I am named by this name. I discover who I am. I sense my original identity, my real self. Whatever mask I'm wearing to cover up fear of abandonment or loneliness, the masks of a performer who's long believed that his insecurity has been best his security. The collapsed ego when I realize that I'm not the center of any universe, not even my own. The moment may not be dramatic. For me, this process of discovery is a continuum of dripping, miniature moments of revelation, of realization. But when I find myself asking the deepest of questions about existence, of mine and those I love, the intimate sense of something other, I know it's okay, that sometimes life needs to speak to us. All my life, I've had these epiphanies, but the one that holds me now as I enter the third act of this life is not so comforting. It is challenging me to overcome myself, to get beyond who I have been, to renew myself, and I'm not sure I can make it. Carl Jung observed that the very thing that makes you successful in the first half of life no longer works for you in the second half. They can positively work against you. And the Franciscan friar Richard Rohr put it this way: it's our strengths rather than our weaknesses that often holds us back. And then Bono continues to write about how service, ambition, duty, loyalty, the desire to be best, the desire to say yes, are all good traits to cherish. But maybe they are a cover for something suspicious. Are these actually the desire to be the center of the action? The perpetual longing to be filled with the extraordinary, so that they begin to lose appreciation of the ordinary. He draws this section of the book to a close by reflecting on the story of Elijah and how he found God in the sound of silence, that still small voice of calm. But the call to be silent is not what Bono wants to hear. And as he says, it's hardly an epiphany moment to be still, but that's exactly what he hears. And he concludes by writing, "Can I just take a walk up the hill with my best friend, who happens to be my wife, and sit on the wooden seat that overlooks the bay and not check the phone to see what's going on somewhere else in the world? Can I take in the view without having to be part of it? Can I take the call? Can I not take this call in favor of this other call to stillness?" And I wonder how Bono's reflections on epiphany moments and about the call to be still speaks to us in the various situations we are in today.
So I've brought a poem that I wrote 2019, so the very beginning of 2019, at the end of the Christmas time. We have a nativity set that we put out every year that is from the Willow series. I don't know whether you recognize the from the photograph, and we love it. It was something we kind of decided we were definitely going to buy some time ago to it was kind of a special, and I just found this particular year, so the 2018 Christmas and early 2019, that it just really drew me in more than on other occasions. And I found myself one night just sitting in front of it for a while. Just, I think everybody else had gone to bed, and I just kind of felt, I just sat there with it. And I also was very mindful of putting it away. At the point we did all the decorations and put them away, and I just wrote this poem in a reflection of that. It contains in effect, the date definition that we saw on the first slide, but also the kind of manifestation definition, and also the realization definition. It kind of encompasses all of those three things. So this is called Epiphany. Don't put me back in the box, to be confined to the dusty loft, with other memories that you feel sentimental about, but can't quite fit into your life. Don't put me back in the box, to be killed off for another year, infanticide, more successful than Herod's men managed. Don't put me back in the box, to push away post-Christmas disappointment as you are forced back to everyday routine and January grey. Don't put me back in the box, never allowed to grow up, to grow in your heart, to grow as your friend. Don't put me back in the box. Let us spend time together, sharing the sun and the rain and the seasons. And when we reach Advent again, let me walk with you to Bethlehem, where we can wonder at the angels, join the excitement of the shepherds, learn from the tenacity of the wise men. And once more, as we celebrate my birthday, we then can continue our journey again together for another year.
Thank you, Joe. This is my John Newton story. Some of you know I had a cataract operation, so there's a real sense of I was blind and now I can see. So it's been my epiphany story. Anyway, I'll share a video with you. When I chose the theme for Epiphany, it was because of the time of year and not because of the connotation it would have for me. Epiphany is a revelation, suddenly seeing things in a way you didn't see before. And it has resonance for me in this particular time because I now find myself on the other end of a cataract operation. It was only just before Christmas I was diagnosed, but I already knew that my sight wasn't all it should be. And when I went to the optician, they said you really could do with a cataract op. The clinic, when I visited, said actually it's not as bad as you think, and we're not quite sure whether you should have it or not. There's a risk to your eyesight and a few other things going on. We may not get the sight you want and you risk losing sight. Do you want to continue? You see, I knew how bad my sight was. I'd come to realise how much difficulty I was having, and for some reason they couldn't quite measure that with the equipment they had. So I went ahead, and I have to say now, it's amazing. My bad eye is now my good eye. I can see things clearly in a way I haven't seen for a really long time. I'm so glad, at least at this moment, that I had the operation. But it made me think about my faith life and the moments of revelation and epiphany I've had within it. And I was thinking about Donald Rumsfeld. He's known for his classic known and unknown known speech. And it strikes me there have been moments in my faith when I've known I've not known. And the one that particularly springs to mind is when I did Alpha. I've been a Christian for a long time. I'd been in Bible study groups. I'd gained a confidence in the Bible over many years of chatting it through with people and working it out for myself. But there was a sense I was missing something. And when I started the Alpha course, I was put in a group for difficult people because I started asking challenging questions and ended up with a minister. But by the end of it, I really had a sense that I was missing the reality of God in my life in terms of the Spirit and the Spirit's work and knowing God's Spirit for myself. And I had a real hunger by the time we got to the Holy Spirit Day, such that I remember very clearly somebody was touched by the Spirit and showed some of the signs of that, and I just felt bereft. And I ended up in tears. And strangely enough, I think that breaking down opened me to what God would do in the Spirit in me after that point. But it was only getting to that point of knowing I was missing something when the breakthrough began to come, a hunger for it. And I began to think about some of the characters in Scripture who have found themselves in that place. I'm thinking of Nicodemus, who, I guess, hearing Jesus speak to the Sanhedrin, then seeks him out in the night, knowing there's more to Jesus than meets the eye, knowing that although they're judging him, there is something about him that speaks of God, and he has that challenging conversation. I'm thinking of Paul, who clearly was seeking God, but didn't see God at all in Jesus, and actually was keen to wipe out the Christians. And then he had this moment of intense experience of Jesus and scales on his eyes and literal blindness. And it just made me think that, again, remind me that I think faith is a journey of a series of awakenings like that. not always huge, not always, blinding road to Emmaus things, but a series of awakenings. I read a new form of Christianity by Brian McLaren, and he talks about a growth as Christians from simple faith to a complex faith to a perplexed faith to a harmonious faith. And but he also talks about church and the role of church and how different denominations and forms of church each have their blindness and each have their revelation. I'm just going to read a text. I've heard stories of Catholics being saved from ritualism by becoming Pentecostal. Pentecostals being saved from emotionalism by becoming Presbyterian. Presbyterians being saved from rationalism by becoming Eastern Orthodox. Eastern Orthodox being saved from clericalism by becoming Baptist. And Baptists being saved from historical amnesia by becoming Catholic or Orthodox. Simple churches save people from complexity, and complex churches save people from simplicity. Political churches save people from an overly personal religiosity, and personal churches save people from an overly politicized religiosity. Exciting churches save people from boredom, and quiet churches save people from hoopla and hype. Around and around the cycle goes. The fact is, faith as I see it is a constant process of discovery. The more we grow, the more we discern of God, the more we realise that there is so much more of God to discover, and we come to know the unknowns that await us. We've always got scales in front of our eyes, but we're always invited to help ask Jesus to help remove them. Most of the time, it's just one set of the time. And so I'm thankful for those moments of awakening, and I look forward to the next one. Lydia was unable to join us. I think she's always doing some wild and wacky with young people, isn't she, somewhere? So she's probably dressed as some strange character and entertaining some kids. I'm not sure, but she sent us her, well, she called it Lid Epiphany.
Epiphany. Epiphany means different things to different people. I've had what I call a few lid epiphanies in my time, where I've just, for some inexplicable reason, realised something that seems plainly obvious once I've realised it. For example, it was when I was older and watching 101 Dalmatians that I realised that Cruella de Vil is sort of a play on words. Cruella de Vil, of course, being a sort of way to say cruel devil. Names are important. Names give us a sense of our identity. The way we say names to people, there's many different ways. For example, I say Fizz when I'm trying to get my dog's attention, or trying to get her to do something. For example, you could have Fizz because she's in trouble, or Fizz when you want to give her treats, for example. That sense of identity is important, that sense of a name. We call the wise men different things. We call them the wise men, the magi, the three kings, the wise ones coming from the East Riding on camels. I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if the wise women came, but let's not go into that right now. The wise men, the magi. Magi is a strange word, and it's where sometimes probably we get our word magic from. They knew all sorts of things, and people thought they were magic because they knew things by just looking up at the stars, not really special, but they knew things just looking at the stars and found out things by observing. They brought strange gifts for a baby. They brought gold to show that Jesus was a king, but a different kind of king. They brought frankincense to show about his worship, because we worship God when we're Christians. And then myrrh to show and foretell the kind of death that Jesus would have. Gifts are important. I think if you look at the love languages, I think I am a gift giver in love language terms. So I will seek out or just find a gift that is perfect for the person who I'm giving a gift to, or I'll be in a shop and I'll think, oh, that gift, that's perfect for so-and-so. And often people will say that gift is so thoughtful because it's just something about me that is perfect for me. At Wistow's Messy Church, we thought about the three wise men and the gifts that they brought, but not just that, but the gifts that we can bring too. And I'm just going to share an image, hopefully. This is an image of what we made during Messy Church. Gifts to the world. We encourage the children and parents, carers, to think about what gifts the world needs right now and what gifts we can offer to the world right now. On here are things like water, food, shelter, a home, happiness, joy, creativity, and peace. I wonder what gift you specifically could bring to the world. I wonder what gift only you can bring to the world. I wonder what gifts the world can give to you right now. I wonder what this world would look like if people change their perspective from what gifts they could get to what gifts they can give. What would be different then? So that is my sharing of myself in a small way that hopefully makes you think today. May God bless you as you consider your gifts. Amen.
I've put open mic here, but I'm very grateful that Leanne has offered to share a little something with us. So I'll hand over to you, Leanne.
Okay, it's only a short little reflection on an epiphany. So many years ago now, in a time before the pandemic, I went to St Bino's for a 10-day silent retreat. I haven't been on my own much in the last 23 years, so it took a while to adjust, to recognise partly that life could carry on without me back in the real world. And that sounds really egotistical to say, but there's a reality to it. Our presence does shape the experience of life, and our absence does make a difference. But it's okay to know that it doesn't all revolve around us and things can carry on when we're not there. So towards the end of the 10 days I was away, I had found a little rhythm and I was beginning to get into my stride. It wasn't like there was a bolt out of the blue. The epiphany or the realization over my time away was a more gradual sort of understanding of how at the end of the day there is just us as individuals and the great creator. My commune with the source of all life really is what life is all about and all I can really rely on and all I can really put my hope in. And it's something that I got to understand really clearly while I was away and had lots of silence and little distraction. When I managed to clear the diary and my head, the challenge is actually how to embody that epiphany when I'm living my busy social life, when I have lots of relationships going on, when I'm responding to what I perceive as demands on me all the time. The challenge is actually, was that a real epiphany that illuminates and changes how I live my life? Or was it just something that made sense in that moment? And I guess the choice is mine, whether it changes how I live or whether it was something I knew for a moment. So I guess it's up to me.
Thank you, Leanne. lots to ponder there. We're going to break off the recording in a minute, so those of us who are here gathered will chew over some of those sharings and see how we respond and resonate to them. And I hope those of you who are watching a recording rather than with us today will do the same. And we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to have you post it on the WhatsApp group or our Facebook page, and maybe even let us know your stories. We're going to meet again in another month on 10th of February, and we're thinking about Sabbath next time. Not necessarily the formal Sabbath, but we're interested to know how you Sabbath, how you find that time, and maybe a little bit like Leanne said, how you get that time away from the run of the mill and find God, or find a sense of yourself in that. But for now, we will return to our Epiphanies, and hopefully we'll hear a few other stories and prompt a few other things. But we will say goodbye to you on the recording. Cheerio. There's obviously, there continues to be things evolving in Kairos as people join us. We try and connect them together to either offer new ways of exploring spiritually, or new mission opportunities, or new way of serving our community and blessing our communities. We try and keep our website up to date. We also have a WhatsApp group, and we'd love you to join us on that. You don't have to commit to everything. You can dip in and out. For those who are part of churches, and may be a way of using your ministry gifts that you can't do so in your current context, or exploring more broadly the amazing spirituality opportunities that there are. Ultimately, we're just about journeying together to making faith real and discovering what it is to be followers of Jesus in this century. So if you want to be part of that in any way, whether it just be following our posts and watching our videos, go to the website and you'll find ways of connecting up with us. In the meantime, bless you over this autumn, and may God bless you in your families, in your churches, in your ministries, and in your lives.